Welcome to day one of Forum. My name is Anna Souza. I am the Forum producer. Thank you for joining us. I hope you've been enjoying the panel so far. We do have one more today, so I hope you'll stick around after this. But right now, you are here for the next step from short to feature. This is one of our evergreen panels, as I like to call it, because this advice is always very valid. And we're always excited to hear about the creative journeys of these artists as they have made the transition from moving from short work into feature work. So, without further ado, I am actually going to ask all of them to please take their seats, and I'm going to hand it over to our fantastic moderator, Janelle Riley with Variety.
Oh no, now I have to be fantastic, the pressure. Thank you all so much for coming out. This is the next step from short to feature panel. I'm Janelle Riley. So thrilled to be here with today's guests. We have three very accomplished and unique filmmakers who have navigated both the world of feature films and short films. So please join me in welcoming today's guests. We have a filmmaker who, after writing and directing such acclaimed shorts as Ode to Abuela and Sprout, made the leap to features with Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, which won her the New Voices New Vision Prize at this year's Palm Springs Film Festival. Please welcome Aitch Alberto.
Hi.
Next to her, her short films include Better Off Alone and With Children. She wrote, directed, and produced the feature film Women as Losers with Lorenzo Izzo and Simu Liu. I always mispronounce his name. It's Marvel's Simu Liu. Please welcome Lissette Feliciano. And they are a filmmaker, actor, writer whose works include the short films Auntie and the Said Family, Xmas Eve Game Night, the series Hidden Canyons, and Kim Kardashian, in which they played the title role. And the feature film, The Queen of My Dreams, will be coming out this year, I think, hopefully.
Yes.
Excited to see it. Please welcome Fawzia Mirza. Thank you so much for being here. I would actually love to go back and sort of start at the beginning. I love talking about short films because I actually love this medium, and I think if you can tell a story in a few minutes, why not do it? I also know a lot of filmmakers, use shorts as a calling card or sort of a proof of concept to make a feature. So I'm just sort of curious how each of you first got started making short films, and what brought you into the medium and what your first experience was like.
Oh, are we going down the line?
Yeah, let's start with Aitch.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. The first short film I ever made, I didn't go to film school, so I'm self-taught. So it was like, what's a good idea that I just could do on my own? And had no idea how to make a short film. So I started writing in Word. Like everything was shift left, like completely wrong. I put an ad on Craigslist. I was 21, and I found a director named Dave Rodriguez who recently passed away, and he was a very accomplished TV director, but not at that point. He had just made one feature. And so that was my first experience as a writer, and I was acting in it. And in that process, I learned how to make a short with like some really great people in Miami, where I'm from, where there's not like a big booming film industry, especially back then. So it was just like really grassroots, and like I think what I learned from that is like not waiting for permission, which is like totally my motto, and just like even if it's wrong, go ahead and do it, right? So that was my first short film.
Did you always know that the end game was to direct? Because it sounds like you had a really good director. Just speaking from my own personal experience as a writer, sometimes bad directors make you direct.
So
you know what I mean?
That was the experience, and I was probably like fully ego, and I was like, if he could do it, I could fucking do it.
Yes.
So that was like the process of like giving myself permission to step behind the camera, which took a lot longer after that point, but it didn't feel impossible from that experience.
Before that, did you think it was impossible? You didn't even dare dream about it?
I just didn't even know that I could do it, right? It wasn't a thought, because, I don't know, I was like a limited sort of thinking of like, that's possible for me as well. Mm-hmm. So that was just the sort of like entry point, and it went on to do many film festivals, and it was like really well received. So that's how I started also building my network. So I was like, oh shit, this is like the ease of this is inviting me to sort of continue to pursue it.
Lissette, for you, were you? I'm always curious if filmmakers, if you started out as a young kid running around with a camera, or if it came later.
I did actually, but not because I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. My cousin just had this video camera, and I was like, oh, let's do Michael Myers and let's run around San Francisco, and that's what we did. And I had I honestly didn't know movies. Oh God, I didn't know movies started with scripts. Swear to God, no idea. And then I got into film school, and I obviously said that in my first class, and I was very popular very quickly. I had to figure that out by myself, and I was like, oh, that's my bad. But yeah, then I started with short films. I think after that, like, we would have to do short films in class, and I think the more we went up the ranks, I started being like, oh, maybe I don't like production design. And, oh, maybe I don't like... And I felt like the girls kept getting kind of pushed into producers, production designers, and things like that. So by the time junior year came around, I was like, no, I kind of like the part where you tell people what to do. I like that part. I've been doing that since I was very little. I have experience in doing that. So that's how I started. I started doing that, and I just, I signed up for the classes that I guess I wasn't supposed to sign up for, and that's what I did, and made short films from there.
Were you the only girl in those classes, or?
I was one of the very few girls in those classes. Definitely one of the only Latinas, for sure.
Maybe we went to the same school, because this is sounding familiar.
Take your pick.
I am curious, because you said you would run around, remaking Michael Myers.
Yeah,
that could mean two things. Was it Halloween or Mike Myers?
Oh, Halloween.
Oh, okay, good. Good answer.
I loved Halloween. I don't watch horror movies now, but I liked that movie for some reason. I don't know why. I was just like, this is fun. Let's do that. But yeah. That's what
Do you
I
have
would
those somewhere that you could put them out? That would be amazing.
I do, and I recently found the little tapes, the little camcorder tapes, and I got them transferred. I was like, delete that. I will never see the light of day, thank you.
No, I want to see these.
They're fun. They're cute memories, but yeah, they're really cool. But that's kind of how I started. I didn't have any foray into this, I was a kid from the Mission District. I had no idea, so yeah.
Well, is that for you?
Well, first of all, I thought Mike Myers, Austin Powers, so thank you
too.
for that clarification.
That would have been a weird short.
And also, Ryan Johnson puts up all of his
Yes.
early stuff on YouTube, and it's really fun to see that. So just saying, maybe it's a TikTok. But I have a pretty circuitous path to being here. I come from a very conservative Muslim family. They were like, no, you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. And so I went to law school. And I practiced law for 3 years. But before I started practicing, I decided I wanted to be an actor because that's common. And so I was lawyering by day and acting by night, and got to the place of being here in the respect that I was acting or whatever, not really acting, trying to act, taking classes, reading plays, being like, I'm an actor. But wait, am I? I can't say it, no. And finally, you get it. It's part of our drama. But eventually I started to see that there weren't really roles. I was living in Chicago. There weren't roles for a queer Muslim South Asian person. Much less one of those identities, like all of those identities put together. So I started writing, and I didn't go to film school. I really relate to the process of how do you write? I don't know, just do something. And so I come from I have a title idea, I have a scene idea, here's a funny joke. I write a lot of comedy. I think there's comedy in everything, including our trauma. And so eventually, I've made maybe, I don't know, I've probably made 12 shorts since 2012. 4 or 5 of them have screened here at this festival, but I didn't direct all of them. Because I, too, was of the mindset that, no, to be a director, you have to have a magic director's vest, something that gave you this permission, and obviously that's the patriarchy, and we know. And it took me a really long time, and it was this feature that is titled as the same. My first short film was called The Queen of My Dreams, and I made that not really as a film. It was this is going to be at a gallery. And it was a film about being queer and Muslim and loving South Asian and Bollywood romance and ideas of love. And I just didn't know if I could be all of those things and have all of that love at the same time in this body as this person with these identities. And so for me, making a film was a way of surviving. And through that, it was programmed, and it had a really lovely run. And that gave me a voice and made me feel like I could make film. And to me, film, it's evolved what that means over the last 11 years, 12 years. And I think maybe I answered the question,
Well,
right?
actually,
Did I?
Yes, but you raised a couple questions
Oh
for me.
my
First of all,
God.
how did your parents react when you said you're giving up your law degree to pursue film?
Well, as you would expect, when I had to come out as an actor, first of all.
No, every parent's nightmare.
Yeah, truly, and they were mortified. And then I became an actor on a lawyer's debt, which I'm still paying off. So that's mortifying for all of us, me mostly. But they didn't like it. You know, they just didn't understand what I was doing at the time. Really, the only South Asian role models. I mean, we didn't. You know, there was no like TikTok or Instagram or anywhere for me to look for these really great this community that represented. Me. And so like the South Asian role models, I always tell people were like Mindy Kaling and Apu. And we know about Apu, you know what I'm saying? Animated and not brown. So it was tough. And then when I came out, which I came out later, I didn't come out till I was like 29 or 30. I know you didn't think I was even close to that
I didn't
age.
actually.
Yeah.
I was like, did you come out last year?
Yeah, 100%. But like it was deeply complicated, and but for me it like fuels. The comedy is my form of survival, and I deeply believe the importance of joy in my storytelling and the importance of showing hope for my community. And people want trauma stories of Muslims, they want savior stories, and that's just not my path. And so that's the long answer of like what my parents felt about it. But I write about my mother a lot, so that's also clearly trauma.
They provide great material. is
And
what you
comedy,
say,
yeah.
Yes. So going back and thinking about when you made that first short, I mean, I know that times and technology have changed so much, but is there one piece of advice you wish you had been given going into making that first film? And we're going to start with you this time.
I was actually just telling my wife over there about this the other day that I think I truly went into it with like a 5D, I don't know, like a DSLR camera, and we were like shooting it to be an art piece. And eventually, I brought on a friend who helped me turn it into a film. I think I could have just maybe shot it in a little bit more heightened way. There was like we used whatever space we could. I just didn't expect it to be a movie. So, but also, it's like it had to be what it was, because the thing that it did, the film is, imperfect. And I'm like, God, why did I not use the wall that didn't have that like old timey heater on it? Like that looks so ugly in the shot. But also, like, it did the thing it was meant to do, which was like give me a lot of healing and give me a space to begin the rest of my life.
And I was just thinking, because I just heard that the Duplass brothers, the very first short that they ever got into Sundance was like one take, and there was a broken pixel in the middle.
I love it.
And they were like, well, it's the best we got. Let's send it off. And it really was about the content.
The art,
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, isn't that?
Yeah.
And they're doing okay now. So, Lissette, for you, is there anything you wish you had known
For shorts or feature?
for your short?
For short. Yeah, so much. It really is that thing about like permission. I think we're all kind of touching on giving ourselves permission because, I don't know, we thought we needed it. I don't know why, but we did. I think for me it would have been like, well, first of all, I didn't know about film festivals. That was a thing. I should have known about that. So I would, there are certain paths. I wish that I had known to sort of make a short film that was something associated with the feature that I wanted to make a little bit sooner. Because I think I was like 6 short films in before I was like, oh, these are proof of concepts for the feature that I eventually want to make, right? That's a lot of money to be in before you figure it out. So yeah, I think that's probably the part that I would have, because that's what happened. I went from With Children to Women as Losers, but they're very similar content stories. But yeah, that was actually advice from somebody that was not that great, but that was great advice. That was fantastic advice. So I was like, I will take that, thank you, amen, and that's it.
So did you go into, did you know that you wanted to make the feature of Women as Losers when you started the short?
No, I actually was trying to make another feature film in Nigeria, because I thought that was going to be my first feature, and lots of people were going to give me money for that. I was like, that'll make a lot of sense. So, but someone said, you need to make another short. And I was like, I have 6 shorts. Why do I need to make another short? And they were like, well, make a short that's, very personal or whatever. So I did that. And it had nothing to do with the script that I was trying to make as my first feature. But when I went to festivals like this, by that time I'd figured it out. You went to festivals like this, I noticed that people were like coming up to me and talking to me about the people in the short. And I thought, oh, okay, there's something in here that people want to see more of, and those beautiful words of what happens next, right? When someone's like, I want to know more, you're like, pay attention to that, because that's what you should be writing more of. So after that kind of just stuck in my head for a long time. And obviously the other project didn't go, and I had some other projects go, and I was like, I can't, I'm going to go with this story and see if there's more there. And there was a lot more there. But yeah, I think that's the advice, would be like,
Wow.
find the feature, the short version of the feature you're trying to make.
H, for you?
I think it was to chill, just
Yeah.
relax. Like, it's not that deep, and like it's an opportunity to sort of make mistakes. And I think, to the permission thing, I think so much of the lack of permission that we give ourselves is rooted in fear, right? So, and that's another thing that I would give someone advice to be like, it's gonna be scary, but still walk through it, right? Because it is a really vulnerable sort of thing, and it's like artistic, but it's all part of this process that's like usually non-linear. So it doesn't really matter, but you take all of those little things and learn from it, right? So it's like every short is completely different, and like there's no sort of, I learned through the process how to make a movie. And then all of that was implemented into my feature. So I'm really grateful for all of the ones that I've made that like some people shouldn't have seen.
I mean, shorts are such a good way to get experience and learn, not only how to do things, but how not to do things, I guess. When it came time to make the leap to features, how did your shorts help you? Were they a good calling card? Or did you find that, like, I'm curious, like, going into to pitch your film, for example, did the strength of your shorts help you get the feature job?
No.
I wondered because this is a wildly popular book you adapted.
It is, and I found it's been a 9-year journey to like, it'll be released September 8th, so go see it in the theaters.
Yes. In
thank you.
theaters.
In theaters, yes. Exclusively in theaters. Across the country. Which is a huge accomplishment, and I never thought it would happen, but I thought it would happen, right? So what was the question again?
Oh, now I've forgotten. No, basically, sort of how you got your feature debut.
Yeah, so no, the shorts didn't matter at all. It was my writing and like being in writers' rooms that sort of helped. So the reason that it was a 9-year journey was because I wasn't like worthy enough to direct it, right? So there was other directors attached. And then I was like, no, this has to be my story that I tell. And I kept figuring out how to break those rules. And that's how I got like Lin-Manuel Miranda attached to the movie and like Eva Longoria attached to the movie, because I was like, I'm the asset, and this story won't be told the way that it should unless I'm in the director's chair, right? So we had so many false starts through that process, and I always knew in the back of my brain that it was my story to tell. And so then I started getting into writer's room, my profile like became important for the industry, and I had this validation from these fancy people, and that's how it happened. But the shorts taught me as a filmmaker, but they weren't my calling card.
So Aristotle and Dante, had you already adapted it? Was there ever a point where someone said, we'll make this film, but with a different director?
Yes. So that happened a lot.
Yeah.
I also was told, like, make them all Asian so you could, like, access Chinese money. And it was like, this is a Latino story. Like, no, what the fuck? So there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of, like, people, thinking they're the person that needs to give you the permission to do it. But it's, like, knowing what your boundaries are and, like, what the goal is, and just being... I was adaptable, though. So, like, Miguel Arteta was attached to direct at one point, and I was like, he's incredible. Like, I want this story to be told, but like I always know it's my story to tell, So sometimes it's like the universe working with you and being really intentional about who you align yourself with and what you do.
How did you get in contact with Lin-Manuel Miranda?
Twitter.
I was going to make that joke, but you really did it?
Yeah. So he read the audiobook to Aristotle and Dante. So there was already like a connection to the material. We had sent the script the traditional route through like managers and agents and all that bullshit. And then I was like, nothing's happening, so I'm gonna take this into my own hands. And I tweeted him, and he replied 20 minutes later. And it was 3 months later, he was in LA. That doesn't happen, but like, why not try? So yeah.
That is I was literally going to joke about that, but that is how you did it.
I think we
love that.
mystify the industry so much as filmmakers, especially when it's like far away from us, right? But once you're in it, you're like, okay, like, what was I scared of?
Yeah.
Like, these are human beings that are like making mistakes the same way, and there are gatekeepers, and there is like resistance to it. But at the end of the day, we're all the same thing, and that's sort of my mindset when I'm in these rooms that I maybe shouldn't be in.
I've heard this happen a lot, so I'm curious if you ever talked to Lin-Manuel about it. Did you ask him if he had ever gotten the script through the normal channels?
I did ask him, and he had never gotten the script through the normal channels.
That was going to be my guess. Yeah.
He also says no to everything. So, yeah.
Lissette, for you, did you find that having your short films was helpful in securing Women as Losers?
Well, yeah, for this Women as Losers in particular, because with children was basically Women as Losers, but smaller version. But everything prior to that, I think, helped a lot in the producing, because, when you're gonna do a lot of the stuff yourself for a long time, so I had to learn sort of like how to get a crew together. I had to start a company, a whole company before, and I had to like produce a ton of commercials and like make those mistakes before I could go, okay, I can get this from script all the way through distribution, which is a lot of fun to figure that out. And like, you're sitting there sending different like files of the same poster, and from like 1 pixel to 100 billion pixels, because whatever. And so like I kind of learned that with the short films, because one of my short films cost me $20, and it wasn't even my $20.
Nice.
So, you kind of learn how to, make do with what you've got, which is a lot of the story in Women as Losers. So yeah, I think I learned how to produce on many mistakes and a lot of credit cards.
I love that. Max
So
out
many
your credit cards.
Many credit cards. Yeah, it's bad. We all know. We all you've all put stuff on credit cards. It's not fun. But you have to, because again, like everything that you're saying, Aitch, is so true and powerful, because it is just people, and our industry is phone calls, right? It's not emails, it's phone calls, and hey, I saw you here, and that kind of stuff. That's a big part of it. So I think it's really wonderful when your short films kind of show you different pieces of like how everybody is just kind of figuring it out. We've all done our features and we're there, but we're still sort of figuring it out still, even the spaces that we're in.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another thing. There's never like a landing. There's no arrival. Like, ooh, I'm gonna make this feature, and like everything's gonna happen.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And, like, I thought that for a second, and then you make the feature, and you're like, I still feel the same.
Yeah.
You mentioned you wish you had known about the festival circuit earlier.
Yes.
Did you find that going to festivals, especially short festivals, helped pay off?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Janelle. 100%. So I would get myself to South by, I'd get myself to La Leaf, I'd get myself to Cannes. I found Cannes to be very good, because everyone's just so chilled out. Everyone's just drunk on the Riviera, and you can get a lot of information very quickly. So that I would just like go and like spend my money there, and I couldn't get into anything because what the hell? They're not gonna let me in. And so I would just like hang around, talk to people, and that's how I met people. And they're meetings that you can't get unless you're repped. You can get them in these settings, which is why it's so important to come to these settings, to come to the Palm Springs Short Film Festival, to come to, even the Palm Springs, anywhere that there's a bunch of, because this is the industry.
Yes.
You guys were the industry. This is it. There's no like big, dude in the sky going, I'm the industry. This is it. So get out there, say hello, shake. We're gonna hang out after. Like, it's gonna be great. So yeah, I thought festivals make a big difference.
And Fawzia, for you, you said you didn't really know you were even making a film when you made your first film.
Yeah.
So the idea that now it's kind of a feature is probably unimaginable.
Well, again, it's like I sort of think of this time from the 2012 making that first short film to now. It's like I wasn't directing then, and so I was acting and writing and telling stories and trying to tell queer Muslim stories. And it wasn't until, and I actually did a play. So I took the spark of this idea that I made in a 3-minute short. And part of why we made a 3-minute short was it's easily programmable. And it's like something that the person I worked with, which is this amazing guy, we were co-directors on the project, which is funny to me because I was like, I'm not a director, but I guess we should split this credit. I just was so like, I don't know. But a programmer had said to him, can you tell a story in 3 minutes? Can you tell something succinct? And he told him that little trick about getting into the festivals, about like being something like everyone's like, no, but I have to make my 16-minute film, my 20-minute movie. I have such a big story to tell. And it's like, well, cool, then tell a feature. Can you tell a story really briefly and concisely? And that's been something I still hold on to in my writing, and sometimes maybe to a fault. But I took that spark and I ended up writing a play, a one-person show called Me, My Mom, and Sharmila, which was an adaptation of that, and a 70-minute play. And I performed it in Chicago, where I was living, and I performed it in a few other countries, including Pakistan. And it was after that that I started to think maybe there's a screenplay here. And I didn't, again, I was like, how do you write a screenplay? Like, I just didn't know what to do. And so for about 7 years, I went through a process that was in and out of finding my way to writing a screenplay. At one point I had a co-writer, but we were very different. Not all co-writers are great collaborators for every project. And not all co-writers are great collaborators, and I love collaboration. So I was working with a collaborator, I worked with a consultant, I worked with just different voices and people, and then finally, and I was applying for grants. Like I applied for so many different, in so many different programs. I finally got the San Francisco Film Society has some different great fellowships. Yeah. I got the Rainin Fellowship for a version of the screenplay. And then I got into the Toronto International Film Festival Writers Studio. And that was really where, for me, I became a director. Truly, it was like, okay, picture this. March 11th, 2020.
Oh.
Toronto, Canada. The North. But we were there, we were at the, TIFF Bell Lightbox, this beautiful theater. I'm sitting there with these incredible, other Canadian, I'm also Canadian, these other Canadian filmmakers, and I'm talking about my feature, The Queen of My Dreams, and they were like, so who's directing this? And I was like, I'm gonna find this queer, Muslim, South Asian director, it's gonna be great. And I kept saying that because I was like, no, it cannot be me. It cannot be me. Oh no, I could never direct. And then they were just like, you're talking about the story, like you're the director, you should just direct it. And it was truly in that moment, in that week, that I made the decision that for me really showed me who I am. And it still makes me really emotional because it was right there, it was right there. And it's true that the industry is not that big bad guy in the sky, but there is that big bad voice in all of our skies that tells us we can't, and that we're not good enough, and we don't have it, and what the fuck is that, and it is the patriarchy, and all the phobias, and racism, all the isms, it's all of that stuff that tells us we can't. That's when I decided to direct. And after that point, from 2020 to now, I made 6 shorts as a director of variable qualities with variable budgets, but I learned a lot. And also, I was just like, I realized that I wish I'd been directing earlier because I was like, I was doing a lot of parts of directing, but okay, I needed to learn this stuff. And I don't know if, I think the experience of having all of this, the experience that I had and the festivals that I'd gone to and the way I was able to talk about my work, my mission, why I do what I do, I think that's kind of how I got to making my feature. And my feature was made not in the studio system in the United States. I went to Canada. The great thing about Canada and being Canadian, any Canadians in the room? Woo! Okay, you know what I'm talking about. We can access funding. Wah wah for everybody else. I know. Find a Canadian. Marry a Canadian.
And you get great health
Get
care.
out.
We get.
Great healthcare, but truly, like, I just didn't see a path in this system, and I didn't know the system here. And so I went to Canada. My wife is the one who was like, "Have you ever applied for funding?" And so I applied for funding. It was still like, how do you talk about yourself? How do you write these grants? There's just so many pieces to the process, but that is how I got there. And I do feel really, grateful to have that as an option for a system, because, it's just a way of different way of looking at the art, creation and making art.
I also think there's a perception, and maybe it's wrong, maybe it isn't, that if you're writing something, you're like, somebody else has to direct it because they're more likely to make it. But I've actually heard a lot of places say, if you plant your flag and say, I want to direct this is my story, your odds are actually better. I don't know if that's been any of your experiences.
I mean, with a lot of missteps, but
Yeah.
I planted that flag, and it was, I just knew, I don't know, it's like really hard to describe it. It felt like spiritual or some shit, because it was like, anytime someone was attached to it, or like someone came on, like Macro wanted to fund it, I was like, this ain't legit, So I don't know how to answer that question. Yes, like for me, yes, and I was really adamant and resilient, and I never gave up on the story when I think, there was many opportunities where I could have.
Brutally honest question. For filmmakers who want to write and direct a movie or make the transition from shorts to features, but maybe they don't want to get involved in the producerial side, there's probably, realistically, not a way to avoid that. You're going to have to take on some producer responsibilities in some capacity, I suspect.
That's for sure.
I was trying to soften that blow.
And then you're gonna have to fight for an executive producer credit. So, because there's not a big bad guy, but there's a lot of dicks in the industry.
Yes.
So, I think we're going to like a really slow transitional period. So there's a lot of resistance, especially for a story like me and a director like me, right? So there was
And is that just sort of like you learn on the job, like you were saying, or?
Get necessity,
Yeah.
right? And I am really, really grateful because I'm finally now in a position where I have found fabulous producers who are just fantastic, and I'm learning so much from them. And so, like, it feels like I've been given this gift after, 12 years of turmoil of, like, please, somebody, like, take this and do some, and so, like, but yeah, for a long time. But I'm grateful for the time that I have had that, because it makes you a better partner, I think, because you can find creative ways that will affect budgets. That it's not the sexy part, but like you have to do that part because that's the work, right? Like, it's like watching dailies. Like, it takes forever, and you have to write your notes and all that. But that's the work. I think a lot of times directing's like, oh wow, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of, it's a lot of work for like 2 or 3 minutes of, yay, everybody watched it, and there's some clapping. But the rest of that is years, like you said, 7 years, and that's not even the years from when you get the stuff in the can to when you shoot it, right? It's
trying to get it made.
Yeah. It's
Which
that
is
whole thing.
fine. Aligning with a really good producer is essential
Yes.
to
It'll
that.
change
But
your
you're
life.
gonna have to like figure out a way to get there, and that's
Yeah.
on your own.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's scary. And there's moments of desperation of like, ooh, so and so that I met at this film festival is gonna produce my movie, and then you start working with them, and it's not the right vibe, and like that's also really important.
Yep.
You don't want to work with assholes out of desperation because you want to get this thing made. And it's trust me, if you get anything out of this and all the bullshit that I've spewed today, do not work with someone that you don't like, and like follow your instincts.
Agree, because I think there is, and I've been guilty of this too. Sometimes you just want to get something done, and you'll take any terms you can, and in the end, it's just not worth it. I feel. This is a very sort of broad question, but since this is shorts to features, what was the one biggest difference in jumping from the shorts universe to the feature universe, aside from obviously time?
You're looking me in the eyes, so I think you want me to begin.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just like listening to these incredible fellow panelists, and I'm just like, I can't wait to see your movies, and I love being on this panel with both of you. And I don't know what, so I don't have that reference of your features. I think, when I think about like, well, what I think of or see sometimes incredible films of like a first feature, maybe it's handheld, maybe it's fewer locations. And, you know, my feature is not that. My feature is made in Canada and in Pakistan. It's shot in, 50% English, 50% Urdu. It was like 2 completely different crews. It's like 3 time periods, including the 60s and the 80s. And 60s in Pakistan, Pakistan does not look like that anymore. Let me just tell you, it was cleaner back then, and that's what every Pakistani says. And so there was a lot. I think the thing that I think about a lot and process is having the world of the movie in your head when you're entering your directorial feature debut is really essential. And I feel really thrilled with my movie. And I don't know if I had the whole world mapped out in my head because it was a lot. And I was learning as I was going. And I feel like that is okay. And that's something that cis, straight, white men are given all the time, the keys to that, whatever, you've never made anything, figure it out. It failed at the box office, it's fine. Here's more money. So I think it's okay. But it's something I think about is really essential as I think about, what is my next feature? What is the next project? I feel like I was really cracked open. It was really beautiful, and you just have to do that every day, and you are the voice that everyone is listening to. And I think especially in this case where I took a couple people from Canada to Pakistan who don't speak the language, and everybody is looking to me. I am the producer, I am the director, I am the writer, I am the Pakistani and the Muslim and the queer and the personal story part of it. And so you just can't stop. And that was beautiful and incredible, and I can't wait to fucking do it again. But that world, you have to be an athlete, you have to have the stamina. And I do feel like some of that came from, I got to mentor a few great people. I mentored Ali Panku, who had a film called I Used to Be Funny at South by Southwest, and she just directed the Joan is Awful episode of Black Mirror. But I was a mentee on her feature. Right before shooting my feature, I was a mentee on a TV show, and that was really helpful, all in terms of just watching, taking in, and the stamina of you don't know, it doesn't matter, you have to keep going. Someone's like, well, we could pick it up tomorrow. No, do it now, get it now. That's all for now.
Lissette?
Yeah, that's key. I think, we've been talking a lot about give yourself permission, and no one knows. No one's born being a director. You just kind of do it and you figure it out and you go along and you make the you have the mistakes, and you need the mistakes so you can learn not to do that next time. And you have to give yourself time to make that mistake and get up. But you touched on something really key. Yeah, we can be flippant and all that stuff, but it's a huge responsibility. Mm-hmm. Everybody's staring at you, like you said. You have to have an answer, or you have to know how to get the answer. Your crew is your key. You're the general, and you have your captains, and you have to know strategy. You have to know chess. You have to know if you're filming a kitchen table, you need to tell me how many crumbs are on that kitchen table. And if you don't know that, you haven't done the job. You need to go back and figure that out. That's the detail, the level of detail that has to go into everything, because everybody is looking at you for that. And you have your friends, and you have your heads of departments, of course, and you want to find the best people that can take your vision and add their vision, and you're just really knowing how to pick, you're trying to pick and kind of corral people into where, and all of you guys know this, right? But on a feature, you're doing that for a long time. So you got to keep your head clear, you got to keep your mind, your heart clear, you have to meditate, you have to be an athlete, you have to eat right, you have to sleep. All the basics have to happen. I think we forget that a lot, and you end up really run down. Mm-hmm. Because if you go down, that's it, the show goes down. You have to really think about, okay, I'm in this position, especially when you fight so damn hard to get into these positions like we've had to. You're fighting your ass off. You have to show up in a way where people kind of back off. I'm really cute and funny and ha 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 or whatever, I'm cutesy, whatever. But when I'm on set, I'm a lion. don't do it. Like, what are you doing? And you can talk to anybody that's worked with me before, and they're like, wow, if a switch flips, it has to flip. It has to flip, because at that point, it's dangerous. There's a lot of money on the line. There's a lot of people on the line, and someone has to respond for that, and the buck stops with you. So really think about that when you're going into your feature film, and be ready run a marathon. Before you make a movie, I kid you not, run a marathon, because at mile 22, that's how you're gonna feel when you're finishing your film. Facts.
I would tell you to relax.
That's a little bit like how I'm on set. This is what we're doing. And now we'll go back to relaxing.
I made sure to, like, if I didn't know something, I was like, I don't know. Let's figure it out together. I never wanted to pretend that I knew something, but I did want to make sure that every decision was mine.
Yes.
So it was very collaborative. Like, crew members have reached out and they're like, when are we going to shoot again? Which is like a compliment. But someone said you run a warm but sure hand, strong, firm set. And I was like, great, thank you. That's exactly what I want it to be. But I really never wanted to pretend that I had all the answers, that I was the only voice in the room. I wanted to make sure everyone felt like their idea could be heard. I wasn't always going to take that idea, because I also had a very clear vision of what I wanted. So it's like, be adaptable and have an open heart. But if you don't know, say you don't know, because then you're just like, fuck, is that right? It's like, you could talk it out, and that's what your crew members are there for. And it was also very important for me to surround myself with people that were not only good at their job, but that were far more experienced than I was. I wanted to be the
100%.
least experienced person on that set.
Yeah.
And that happened, and it was joyous, and we didn't have any time, which is like where the shorts came in. And I was shooting 7 to 8 pages a day, and everybody was just on, but I would start every day with, like, this is a movie about love, so let's approach this with love. And I think this really set the tone to how we moved as, like, a family. And, like, lot of those people are still in my life.
I love that.
Yeah.
A director once told, one of the best advice I ever got was a director told me, beware the director who wants to be the smartest person in the room.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that, just to your point, I think, when we think about the industry does want you not to believe that that's possible or powerful. The industry wants all of you and us to be in competition with each other and not in collaboration with each other. And that is bullshit. The more we help each other, the more we protect each other and care for each other, the more we can create and do our best work and create better art and create space for the next and the next and the next. There is abundance. There is enough for all of us. I mean, have you seen how many bad shows there are? Okay, you too could make a bad movie. You too could make it, you know what I'm saying?
I do want to take some questions from the audience. If you have one, just raise your hand, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. We'll start right here. Oh, I didn't realize we had a mic, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, you're right here.
Hello, everyone. Hello. My name is Andrew. I have a film here in the festival. So when you had finished your shorts and you had done the festival run, then what? Did you write the script for your feature and then try and sell that spec script? Did you have a producer that was super inspired by the story and was like, hey, I want to walk this path with you? Like, what was that part of the journey for you?
Why do I go first every time?
Let's start with Lissette.
I made my short, and then I wrote the feature pretty quickly after that. Because what happened is I had lost $1 million, and I don't know if you guys have ever lost $1 million. It's not a fun thing to do. I was on
Like you left it on the street?
Yeah, I wish. No, it was. I went up for the AT&T Untold Stories grant, and that's a weird position to be in when you're like so close to the dream, and then it just doesn't happen for you. And so then I kind of took that pain, and was like, okay, I've done everything I can do. I've tried this, I've tried that. The only thing I can do is dig deep into what I have and write. So then I wrote Women as Losers pretty quickly after that, and then it was that thing of give myself permission to just do it, right? And to Aitch's point about don't be the smartest person in the room, get the smartest people in the room as quickly as possible. That's almost what I did. I sent a script that, we hold our scripts for too long, I think. We're like, it's gotta be perfect. It's never gonna be perfect. And the sooner you get it out, I think, obviously don't send first drafts, but the sooner you get it out, the process starts. People give you their opinions, you get the notes, you get that. And for me, that movie really kicked off when I got my director of photography on, my production designer, my makeup, my wardrobe, because everybody kind of came to it and was like, okay, this is the space and we can work through it. So it wasn't even just like, did I just go into a corner and write a script? I did, but that script alone wasn't gonna do anything. It was the people that came to the team. And thankfully, I too have had a lot of people that I work with all the time, and we've been working together for like a decade, and that's a huge vote of confidence because if Ted Hope, he's a producer, he said the thing that he asks filmmakers is, what's your longest relationship? I was like, that's weird. And then he said, well, it's because I need to know if you can have a relationship with people.
Oh my God.
And so, like everyone has different directing styles and stuff, but for our friend, you have to be able to, for me, it starts immediately with my heads of department. As soon as I can get them in there, I'm like, great, the movie's happening. Because now I'm just listening for ideas at that point. It's great.
That reminds me of advice someone once gave me that said, beware the person whose best friend is someone they've only known a year.
Yeah. That's true.
So true.
That's so true.
That's what this whole industry is all relationships.
Relationships,
Like
yeah.
any Zoom call, it's not about, if you're in the room, they know you could do it,
Yeah.
they know you're talented. It's like, do I fuck with this person enough to be in a relationship with them for a year, 3 years, 9 years?
Yeah. Well, and I think I think the other truth is that everyone has a different story of how we made our films and how all of you have made your films. I'm sure if each of you told your story, it would be so different. There'd be overlaps, but they're all so unique. And I am I'm always working on something. So it's like, because the thing that inevitably happens in all the meetings you go to, it's like, and what's next?
Yeah.
What else? What more? And you're like, I just made this, bitch. You know what I did here? This took my whole life to do this. But they're still going to ask, and there's still an answer. And so when, with the shorts, it's like, well, sometimes I was like making shorts, or sometimes I was like, well, I just got this other short, or I have 3, this was one year, I was like, I have 3 shorts on the festival circuit. That's how I was sort of having a story of what I was doing. And I think the scripts, it's like, oh, well, you like this, I have the feature version of it ready. So it's like, I guess, be ready. If the truth of this industry is that it can, it is a game of attrition, so you just want to be in it as long as you can, and as long as possible for your work to build those relationships and to make the work and to find the folks who have the money to believe in you and want to make with you. And also, tomorrow someone could just say, well, what do you have? And they read one of your scripts and they're like, oh God, this is what I've been, it does happen, and it can happen. And it's not a miracle because you've been doing the work. And I think this is so funny. It's like, just be cool, when you have your meetings, you meet all those people. It's like, sometimes it's just a meeting, and it's just like the beginning of maybe in 5 years something will happen with them, or you'll run into them at another festival, or you'll see them at the Grove in LA. And it's like, this is not the last moment you have with someone to share your work. But I love the idea of the scripts. I mean, one story that I have that I think still, I'm like, did that happen? I mean, I made a short film, and a network executive saw it at a major film festival and bought it. And we'd been developing the pilot for over a year plus. And that feels insane, wild to me. That feels cuckoo bananas, but that I didn't have a pitch. We didn't pitch it. It was just the strength of the work was something that was hitting this one executive at the right moment, at the right time, and it got into this, it was just that thing, and they liked us. So, yeah, there's so many ways. I know your film. Yeah.
You've seen it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And you all can see it tomorrow at 11.
Wonderful!
That right there is
Yes!
why it's going to opened his mouth and hyped it up. That's so much of what you have to do.
Do we have any other questions? Sure, right down here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carolina. I'm writer-director of The Avon Lady. I have a question that I'm going to assume that probably a lot of us have had. My next project is absolutely can be a feature. But I'm still pretty new. I paid for this movie by myself and with some fundraising. That has definitely helped. But now I'm looking to this next project. And originally I was like, okay, I'll make a feature, a short. That'll be my proof of concept, all the things. Okay, let's see, I can take out a second mortgage. How do I pay? And then there's the thought of why not just write it as a feature and then try to do it that way. My fear, of course, is if I do that, it may take, I don't know how long. Will it get made? Will it not? But maybe someone will pay for it. But if I do a short, then I have something to show, and maybe it'll be more likely that someone will pick it up. So I'm kind of stuck right now, which to do, and I would love to hear your thoughts on, how you've decided or how one could decide something like this.
You two need to chill. Take a deep breath. Ooh, it's all good. Those questions will never stop, especially when you're writing. Does this matter? Is anybody gonna care? Those are all real questions that'll always be present, right? I say do it. You could do both things. You could hold all of those things at once. Do not take out a second mortgage. Write the script so you have another avenue, submit it to labs. That was really helpful for me. Do all of it at once if that feels right for you. I don't think you need to limit yourself to how and what path, and it's not up to you what direction that takes. But if you do the work, it's in the air, and the energy will somehow find it because you'll figure out a way to do it.
We have one right down here. Unless, did you want to add something?
No,
Oh, okay.
Hello, my name is Chu Xu, and about me, I'm a Chinese citizen living in the United States. It's been 12 years since I immigrated from China to here. And I'm a writer-director with my film Go With The Flow here, and there's a burning question that I have to ask you guys is, do you think about your audience when you're trying to write your script? Because the case for me was I'm an immigrant, so a lot of things that I write is about immigration, the process of immigrating. You get the picture. And often I'll be thinking about, am I talking to Chinese people? Because immigration in China is completely different from immigration here in the United States. And a lot of the time that I'm trying to figure out, am I writing in Chinese or am I going to be writing in English? I mean, and now my experience as an immigrant filmmaker is that I write half and half. Sometimes I'll be just writing in Chinese nonstop, and sometimes I'll be writing in English. So I guess, to wrap it up, do you think about your audience and who you're trying to connect with when you're trying to write your films?
I can jump in on that. I think I'm definitely more militaristic in directing, as we all can tell. But for writing, that's when I'm chill. That's when I'm okay, let's just see where it goes, right? Because I think writing is very spiritual. It will just, you are a vessel and it's gonna come out one way or the other, and trying to hone it into forcing it, I think those are questions that happen later, right? One of my greatest mentors says, don't edit yourself, write it. And with the people that I work with on scripts, I'm always I don't care. Don't send me anything past 100. I need to see it. Everyone just people just get stuck, right? Because they're stuck on the fear of perfection, or that your audience, you don't know, right? Because the story is coming from your heart, and hopefully it's coming from your heart. And even though I'm not Chinese, I'm sure that you had a universal human experience that I can relate to. And I think that, when I first started writing, that would happen a lot. I'd be oh, this isn't good enough. This isn't who is this for? And all those marketing questions that have no space at all in the creative process when you start. It's just you, the paper, and your heart. If you're crying in your script, I'm probably gonna cry, right? If you're laughing, I'm probably gonna laugh. And that's where I love screenwriting for that particular space, right? Because it's just you. So I wouldn't worry. I mean, think about it, but if it's just another reason for you to tell yourself you're not good enough to do this script, just toss it, and just do the writing. It'll find its way. I think.
You'll be able to. You're gonna have those conversations are
Yeah.
gonna happen later, like you
Yeah.
said, later down, and you'll have those moments where you're editing the script, and it's like that first draft is for you. You don't have an audience. You're the audience.
Yeah.
And then you start developing that. You start working on that, and it's you. I mean, the movie evolves. You have a script.
Yeah.
The movie you shoot, and then the movie you edit, and then the movie that these fucking dickhead financiers want you to like make, and then there's the movie just evolves. So that first experience, to Lissette's point, is yours, and it should be yours.
Yeah, and the more she's so right. Oh my God, this is crazy. The more it's about you, the more you're probably gonna get that audience, right? Because we're all so more similar than we think we are.
So true.
Right? We all are like the
It's
same
so true.
person.
Yeah. You think something's very specific, and you find it's actually
Yeah.
universal.
You have to be
So.
like, me too. That's happening.
I think there is universality and specificity.
Yes,
100%.
that's the better version of what I was trying to say.
And it's like it's also like a real, question of like, I think of my film and it's like, well, I shot it in Canada and will it be seen as this kind of film, or will the Americans watch it, or Pakistanis, will they? Maybe it's not going to screen in Pakistan, but like I think about that stuff as well, and maybe that means there's not just one script about immigration that you have. Maybe you have 5. Maybe you have 2, and maybe you explore some of those questions also in the work. But yeah, being who you are is literally the thing that is real.
That will fly off the page. Can I give you one more piece of advice? Read scripts.
Yes.
Read good scripts, right?
Yeah.
They're like the
great.
movies that you love, read them. Like Goodfellas, Godfather, read those things, because what you realize is all the stuff that you kind of learn in script writing classes, they're not following that. They're doing something else. And you're like, oh, that's flowery language, James Cameron.
Yeah.
They told me not to do that. But that's Titanic, so I'm gonna go do that. So read those scripts.
Oh my God, has anyone read
That's how I
this?
taught myself how to write.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was
sidebarring.
I was has anyone read the screenplay of Tar, or like the first page? The first page is just like this much of a paragraph of like the conductor, the composer has to be part of this movie. And it's just like telling a tale about the composer. And I'm like, oh my God, should I do this in my mother-daughter story? It's just like, it's so freeing and beautiful to see. I feel you.
True.
I don't know if any of you use the app Time Hop that shows you what you were doing like a year ago today, or
Oh my God.
yeah, I love it. And mine just came up. I had just done some opening weekend Q&As with Everything Everywhere All at Once. And it's so funny to go back and be like, I think people might like this movie. I actually think, I know people are talking about Michelle Yeoh, but Ke Kwan, he could maybe win an award for this.
Wow.
And like, you just don't know, I remember thinking like, I love this movie, but who is it for? Turns out it's for everyone.
Yeah.
That's true. I think we're out of time. My watch died, but I'm pretty sure we're right at about time. I want to thank you for being a great audience, but also thank you all so much for coming out.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, y'all.
Thanks, Janelle.
Look for Aitch's film, September 8th. You can find Women as Losers on Max currently. And we'll be looking forward to Fawzia's film.
Yes.
And a round of applause for the festival. They're
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Great job.